Hello there everyone, welcome back to Russian Context. The last time you saw me was probably with this building right here behind me, that is Narkomzem, and we ended right at the beginning of Myasnitskaya Улица, or as I should probably say, the end of Myasnitskaya Улица. Myasnitskaya Улица ends right here, where it runs into Sadovaya Koltso, but today I want to show you the other direction. We're going to go down Myasnitskaya Улица towards the center. I'm going to show you some old historical buildings, some interesting stories connected to them, and then you can get a little view of a part of the city that's not really honestly all that touristic, which is one of the reasons that I love it. So I'm just going to flip us back around here, and let's get moving down Myasnitskaya. Obviously you can see we got a bit of construction here. I don't know what they're doing. We've got some of these older buildings here too, which are in, not the best shape, but this kind of what in the minds of some people would be kind of a gross looking building right here. And I'm actually gonna go across the street so that we get a better look at it, but sorry, I'll tell you about it right now. This is actually one of the first buildings I want to talk about, because this is the current Ministry of Trade for the Russian Federation, but it's better known as the Gostorg building. Kind of get a look at it right here, and then right. So this was the state import and export office during the Soviet Union, but it's another building which truly embodies that sort of constructivist maxim, ornamentation is a crime, which its constructivist planners tried to adhere to. I'm going to cross the street here, and then we can get a better view of it from this side. If you were to go left over there, that would take you back to the metro station Krasnye Varota, but we're not going back that way. We're going to take a look at this building first. So, yeah, I'm gonna pan a little bit so we get a better view of it. But yes, like I said, there are some small changes that have been made to this building over time. The air conditioning units, for sure, that's one of them. But anyway, they've done a few things, but regardless, it is still just another good example of early constructivist architecture. And realistically, there's not too much else to note about it. I did, at the end of the last video, mention how in Narkomzem there are the paternoster lifts, the elevators that don't ever stop and don't have doors but just move very, very slowly. Those can also be found here. In fact, as I remember correctly, this is the first building where they were installed. And yeah, I think I misspoke earlier. This is actually the current building of the Federal Agency for Tourism, although I might be mistaken for that. Things get changed around quite a bit. But yeah, this is historically known as Gostorg, and yeah, some people would call it a very ugly building. It definitely is not super attractive, but it has its charm, if you will. So let's go down this way. So let's talk briefly about the name of this street. This name of the street here is Myasnitskaya Улица. And if you know anything about the Russian language, then you're probably familiar with the word мясо. Now, мясо is the Russian word for meat, and the word мясник is the Russian word for butcher. So, as you can maybe make a connection, Myasnitskaya Улица was a street that was actually associated with butchers. Now, not necessarily in this area, because this area was not originally Myasnitskaya Улица. The original Myasnitskaya Улица was a little bit further into the center. It's like kind of the inner half, if you will, and it was in the 16th century. This was later built out in the 17th century. We're going to cross the street here in a second. And it actually kind of, when it was extended, when this part of the road was extended, it became a bit of a prestigious region, kind of thanks to it being on the route that Peter the Great used when he was traveling to one of his residencies in Lefortovo. So let's kind of I could probably go in there a little bit, but I'm gonna keep us out. Keep us out here. Okay. I guess that's kind of the joy of having a camera on a stick, is I can kind of lift up a little bit. So this right here, on the right-hand side of Myasnitskaya, as we move close to the center, is the Lobanov-Rostovsky Manor. It's kind of interesting for two reasons. Mainly, the first one, the thing that I first noticed was that massive arc. That is pretty unusual. As you can kind of see these triangular, I don't know what the name of it is architecturally, it's not a cornice, but anyway. The triangular ones are a lot more common for this time, so this massive arc is something of, I don't know, it's an oddity, so it gives it a little bit of some of its own personal flavor. But, and this is the thing that I didn't even notice the first time I looked at. Look at how low the building sits in relation to the street. I didn't notice that the first time. I was too busy looking at that massive arc and the house in general. I'm gonna kind of move us around here, get around the bus stop. But why is it so low? Because it is, in fact, you can kind of see from that car over there, it is significantly lower than the street which I am currently standing on. And that's just because, due to various factors, cities get higher over time. Not speaking to the actual height of the buildings, but higher in the sense that when we build things in cities, we typically build them on top of things which already existed here. And that is the case. By some counts, every century a city gets a meter higher. And this building right here, this manor, the Lobanov-Rostovsky Manor, is a prime example of that, because as you can see, it's about 1.5 meters, not quite 2 meters lower than we are currently standing. And that would make sense because this building is about 2 centuries old. So there is something to that as well. But yeah, just a little interesting fact too. I know in the States, obviously a lot of buildings, cities are not super old, although Boston, New York, they are relatively, but in Europe, this is something that a lot of people are totally familiar with. So I'm going to swing us back around over here. The green building that you see right here is the House of Three Composers. Let's talk about why it's 3 composers. So the first composer is Franz Liszt, who on his visits to Moscow, he would actually come to this house, to this residence, and he would give daily playings on the piano. Then in another era, the owner of the building, Nadezhda Filaretovna von Meck, she was pen pals with Tchaikovsky, and she supported him financially for as long as she could. Tchaikovsky would even stay here when he was in Moscow, and the lady of the house was out of town. They never actually physically crossed paths, they just remained pen pals for the entirety of their life. And then the third composer who was connected to this was a young Claude Debussy. He taught von Meck's daughter, whom he fell in love with, and then he asked for her hand in marriage, only to be run out of the house by the same Nadezhda Filaretovna. And then after that, Debussy returned to France, where he would make a name for himself as an impressionist composer. So, yeah, I guess a lot of music happening in that house. We're gonna go a little bit further down here on the right, and then we're going to backtrack a little bit, and then we're going to go down that street right there. And I know that's not Myasnitskaya, but it's all kind of the same area, so I'm just going to include it in it because it's worth a look. There's definitely something down there. But first, we're going to take a look at this. Now up here, we have another constructivist building. You're kind of getting a trend here. This is actually the last constructivist building that we're going to be talking about in this video, or really any other future videos for the next period of time. This is the Dom Center Soyuz. Dom Center Soyuz. And yeah, this one was famous for being designed by the Swiss-French architect Le Corbusier. You can actually see a plaque dedicated to him. So Le Corbusier was a pioneer of, there you go, right, you can see it right there. A pioneer of modern architecture. He believed that a house is a machine for living in, right? And that it should reflect the needs of the people who live inside of it. Now, unfortunately, Le Corbusier was not able to remain in the Soviet Union to see construction through to completion, so the building did not end up being exactly as he planned it, but still pretty close. The biggest difference would be that the building was originally envisioned to have like a bunch of columns down here. You can actually see some of the columns, right? We can see some of them here, but a lot of them are blocked in by the walls, and that's not what it's supposed to be. This is also a really big building. There's another street on the other side of this, and Corbusier actually thought that it was just going to be like this open territory where people would be able to walk from one street to the other, and then I guess, back to the other side. But as it is, they actually closed some of the columns up, so it's not completely open. That kind of makes sense. You do have to kind of go in and then go up into the building. And then also, the territory is closed. So even if it was completely open, you wouldn't be able to walk through it. But let's kind of go down here. On the other side is the Prospekt Akademika Sakharova, which is, I don't know, it's like another major big city road. And then this, we actually have a statue dedicated to the architect himself. This, I don't remember what year this was put in. I think it's written on the memorial, if I'm not mistaken. Perhaps not. But yeah, this is a monument that they built for Le Corbusier. You can actually see his name right down there. So yeah, this is, like I said, this is the last sort of constructivist piece of architecture we're going to be looking at in this video, or any of them to be coming in the near future. What's actually in Dom Center Soyuza сейчас? Росстат. Oh, of course. My favorite organization, the Russian Statistics Organization, is now currently located here. So, I don't know how I forgot that. Anyway, it slipped my mind, I suppose. We're gonna go back in the direction we just came from, and then we're going to take, I guess I should just cross the street right now. Let me just go ahead and do that. So, bum. Okay. You can kind of see the top of the Stalinist high-rise Vysotka na Krasnych Воротах back there. I talked about that in the last video, which if you haven't seen, you should go check out. But all right, so we're gonna take a look. Is the territory open? Should be. This yellow building right here. I guess it's not open. It has been in the past. I know I've definitely gone through here. But so this yellow mansion, this is the Baryshnikov Manor. And it's actually one of the few remaining in Moscow that dates back to before the Great Fire in 1812 when Napoleon was in Moscow. It was actually built at the turn of the 19th century, so not super long before the fire actually happened. And there are some interesting aspects to it, architecturally speaking, but most of them are connected to the interior of the building, and we can only get in there on specific days. The reason I'm calling our attention to it right now, because we can't really see too much of it, is that this is where the famous Russian author Griboyedov wrote probably his most famous work, which in English is known as Woe from Wit. So if you have not... Oh wait, we can get in here. Okay, never mind. So yeah, this is where Griboyedov wrote Woe from Wit. And I don't know, that's kind of historically why it's important, I guess. As you can see right there, there's a little logo type. That is the logo type of the newspaper Argumenty и Fakty. It's kind of not a really good newspaper, honestly. It's kind of a rag. But yeah, they are currently here. And I actually want to go through. I want to show us the courtyard, because I think it is a bit interesting. Just to kind of have a look at what's in here, get an idea. But yeah, you should, if you have not read Griboyedov's Woe from Wit, that definitely is something you should check out. So yeah, the courtyard of the estate house is, well, it's basically a parking lot at this point in time. But for the most part, I do say the one thing I do enjoy is the fact, or not enjoy, that I appreciate is the fact that they put the air conditioning units away in those yellow boxes. As you saw on, I don't remember which building it was earlier, the first one on Myasnitskaya that I pointed out, when they have the air conditioning units on the outside, it just kind of ruins the facade in the way that it looks. Granted, this is the interior courtyard, so it's less of an issue, but you know, obviously you do want to have modern conveniences in old buildings. So anyway, and then take a look at the side of this building here. We're actually going to go around to the side and take a look at the building from the front, but I do want to point out these things on the side here. Yeah, these are what's the name of falcone, or what they're called, these weird little window things. You can actually see them around the city from time to time. They're again another part of modernist architecture, and relate to the time period that the building was constructed in. But we got to actually get around We can go take a look back that way. Nothing. Looks like a music school back there. So we got a guy out here taking pictures. Oh no! We got a wedding out here. I'm gonna have to wait just a second, so pause. All right, unpause. It has been like an hour and 15 minutes. There was a wedding party out there on where we're about to go, in front of the building, doing like a non-stop photo shoot for that entire time. I've been all over the place, even though no time has elapsed for you. But regardless, let's go back out and actually take a look at why this building is a good place for a photo shoot. Not so much what I'm standing in front of right now. So let's go back out this way. We're actually going to go out to, this is Malý Charitonovský переулок. It's a small side street here, but this is what we want to see. We'll go around this building or this car right here. So this right here, this is a dochodny dom, or a tenement building, and it was built by the Myasnitskaya Street, the Polytechnical Society. It was built over 100 years ago, about 120 if I'm going to be exact, and it was built for the members of a Polytechnical Society. What's actually kind of interesting and a bit of a surprise is that this building still actually belongs to engineers. So, which is, again, the reason it's kind of a surprise is, given the long and tumultuous history of Russia here. The whole plan with this was that they were going to earn back their money by renting out space inside for people to rent, but then obviously the revolution happened, and I don't think that actually ever paid off for them, but I don't know enough to actually answer about that. I want to point out a few things with regards to the design of the building, and then, yeah. So, with regards to the design of the building, the building was built between 1905 and 1906. But yeah, the reason for the design, which is English Gothic, that's kind of why it has this castle look to it with the armaments up there, is because in the words of the architect, and I actually have a quote here, England gave us the first steam engine, locomotive, steamboat, and loom. So for a Polytechnical Society to pay tribute to all that, it kind of makes a little bit of sense there. A few small details between the second and third floor. It's probably going to be a little bit hard to see. I'll try to zoom in. There are some images, kind of over there, and then 3 on this side, and they pay tribute to aspects connected to like polytechnical studies. You can see on this side, there's actually a building here on the far left. I don't know what that is. This, I believe, is a loom, a weaving machine, and then there is a retort flask. We're going to talk about the numbers in just a second. And then on this side, we have a, this is a motor, that is a steam engine, and then over there, the far one is a bridge. That's a bridge. So those are all things obviously connected to engineering. This is really an engineering building. I know it says Polytechnical, that's kind of the word in Russian, but it's an engineering society. The dates, 1878 and 1905, those are connected to 1878 was the year which the Polytechnical Society was founded, and 1905 was the year that the building was built in. And then we're actually going to go over here and get a little bit closer look. Here you can actually see above the door the Russian letters P and O for Polytechniskaya Общество, so again, Polytechnical Society. And small detail here, this is actually the original door. This has not changed in a very long time. And I'm assuming the glass in it is still the same as well, though I wouldn't know that one. But the door itself is unchanged. So yeah, it is a very beautiful building, and it's a very unusual one. I feel like it's one of those that a lot of people don't know about. Obviously, Lenin was here. We have to, I don't know, pay tribute to him. But the building itself does have, I don't know, something beautiful about it, and it's quite unusual, all things considered. It's the type of thing that if you did not know it was here, you would easily pass it by, and honestly, you could still easily pass it by if you were walking too close to it. But yeah, obviously the balconies up there, maybe hard to see, could do with a little bit of repair work, but for the most part, the inner courtyard too is supposed to be really fantastic. I don't know how to get in there. I'm assuming that you have to. On the 6th floor, as far as I understand, there is a like an art space, and you can go in and I guess do some art stuff up there. But yeah, I'm not going to get into it. As far as I can understand, if you were to go through this gate, or perhaps there's another entrance, but yeah, so we can't really, all we can do is see how it looks from the outside, but even that is enough. One last look, right, this kind of Gothic castle looking structure, which honestly is quite fantastic in my opinion. So yeah, that right there, even though we are technically not on Myasnitskaya Street anymore, like I said, we are on Malý Charitovský переулок, which is just off of it a little bit. That's kind of where we're going to end things right now, just because there's actually more I want to show you in this region still. It's kind of down that way, but this video is already a little bit too long, and I, again, editing, trying to make things a little bit shorter so it's easier for people to watch and get through. If you enjoyed the video, leave it a like, subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, comments again. Please write comments if you saw anything that you maybe did not know about before. If you learned something new today, give it a like. But yeah, this has been Russian Context. Thanks for watching.